Where is he?
Where are you? Skull Rock. Do you know it?
Hello, everyone. This is Stacy over at the Skull Rock broadcast. I'm here with...
Hello, I'm Megan. Welcome back to our Stranger Things podcast. And we are so excited, as always, to be here with you today. How's it going, Stacy?
It's good. It's good. I'm recording in my living room today, which is nice and comfy. Quinn's on the couch with me. And I wanted to show you my glitter red Eddie that I got. I know you guys can't see it, but I will post it on our story. But yeah, I have him actually on my coffee table all the time. Look how gorgeous.
He is beautiful. Oh my gosh. Yes, give him a nice little kiss.
A little peck. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. It's a pretty day out. It's kind of warm and just trying to relax this weekend. I rewatched Spree last night.
Oh, Spree.
That was a good time.
So I was thinking, because, we're meeting him in October, and I'm obviously getting that postcard that JQ signed, but I was like, I kind of want to get something Spree signed. And a friend of mine, I'll have to look up their Etsy shop again, but they make custom VHSs, and they made a Spree one. So I'm like, might have to get that for him to sign. That might be pretty cool.
That would be really, really cool. I don't know if she made this, but Kelly in her stories posted like a VHS.
A marmalade.
Marmalade. Yeah. I was like,
That
ooh,
looked
I would
beautiful.
totally buy this. Like, even if it was just like the fake case, like.
Yeah, there's an artist, I'm blanking on names today, but they make custom VHSs and their artwork's incredible. And I got one for Better Watch Out, which Dacre might be signing, to be honest. And it's just a blank VHS tape and you just have the cover slip. So that would be pretty cool, a Marmalade one, because that movie rocked.
Yeah, it was so good. Wait, is that a horror movie? Can I watch that?
Better Watch Out, the best way to put it is I would recommend it. I think you
Okay.
can handle it. Go
Okay.
into it completely blind like I did.
Okay. Well, I don't know
Because
anything about it, so that would be great.
I think it's streaming on Tubi. I highly recommend it. Dacre's in it and he steals the show. You think it's one kind of movie, the first 30 minutes, and then it just spins and it's completely your jaw is on the fucking floor. So
Okay.
highly, highly, highly recommend it. And you have seen my cosplay, sexiest cosplay ever.
Yes, it's so good. That's his character, right?
That's his character. And he's just
Okay.
the ultimate fuckboy, just the gangster hat and the puffy coat and stuff. How guys dressed when we were in high school. Basically, that's him in a nutshell. So
Yeah. I need to watch more of Dacre's stuff before we meet him, because was he in the Elvis movie?
he's in the Elvis movie. He's really only in 3 scenes.
Okay.
I did the Leo pointing thing in the theater. I was like, Dacre, I do recommend the Broken Hearts Gallery. It's
Okay.
a rom-com. He's the male lead. He's swoon worthy. But speaking of Spree and Uber, there's the scene where the lead girl, she's pretty wasted, and she gets into his car because she thinks it's her Uber. And he's
Oh
like,
no.
this isn't an Uber. And she's like, just take me home. I die.
That's amazing. We need Joe Keery in a rom-com yesterday.
Dude. I'm telling you, I'm hoping, because you know how it's going to be filming that new movie with Elizabeth Olsen.
Yes.
Fingers crossed that's a really cute rom-com, because
I don't think it's going to be, because I read the description and it was so weird. But I don't know. Maybe.
Dear God.
But so what are we here to talk about today?
So we dove deep into Lover's Lake, and we are talking about our rewatch of episode 3, Holly Jolly.
Yes, I just love the timing of how everything is working out with our podcast, because
Oh my God.
could this be a better week to rewatch this episode? It's just crazy. All of this stuff has come out, which we'll definitely talk more about at the end, relating to Holly's character this week, which is the week that we rewatch this episode and are going to dive deep about it. So that was just so cool. And I forget how much I love this episode. I think it's
It's one of,
my
I think, the best
favorites.
episodes in this season, hands down.
Yeah, yeah. Like, the first 2 are great. I love the first one, obviously. The
Mhm.
second one I feel like was very fast-paced, and there was just
Yes.
so much in there.
Jumping
But
around,
this
yeah.
episode, yeah, I feel like it slowed down a little bit, and we kind of built the mystery around
Mhm.
everything, and there are just some, like, really, really iconic scenes in this episode, so it was a really fun one to go back to, and I am so glad we're doing this because I've literally never been able to just make myself watch one episode at a time.
Yep.
I'm always like binging and watching
Mhm.
like at least 2 or 3 episodes in a sitting. So it's cool to focus just individually on one episode at a time and really go deep with it. So,
100%. Yeah.
yeah. So obviously we love the beginning of this
The beginning,
episode.
I have to say, Sean Levy, you sure know how to shoot a love scene. So our Nancy and Steve, they're still going at it like 2 raccoons, and, yeah, I really have to say, Joe freaking Keery, work of art, like,
It,
I'm like,
it's the sexiest scene in the
"Oh, yeah."
show.
Like,
Like,
his back, you could do an
yes.
oil painting of that damn thing. I just and I do love that it's, the music and the song that's playing and that it keeps cutting back and forth to Barb, who somehow can't get out of that fucking pool.
Right, and poor thing because I always forget. I feel like she's taken and she just dies immediately. I guess that's what my brain wants to have
Yeah.
happened, but that is not what happens, and we're cut with, like, that horrifying, like, scene of her trying to get out of the pool
Yeah.
and going back and forth to, like, the sexiest scene ever.
Yeah,
So,
like, you see Joe Keery's huge hands just squeezing Nancy's, and it's so sexy, and then you go to Barb's poor hands that are trying to hold on to the ladder, and I'm like, "Bitch, get out of the pool." But I would say the equivalent of a because it's the Demogorgon, that's like a grizzly
yeah,
attack. So,
yeah,
poor Barb, and, ooh, I don't know, I think that's one of the best, like, cold openings for the show, you know?
yeah, yeah, and I love how it kind of just, like, that's how we end the second episode,
Mhm.
and it immediately picks back up with that
Retransition,
in
yeah.
episode 3. So, yeah,
Which I love that,
perfect.
after we do the chapter titles, it's holly jolly. It cuts to, hopefully, and I would like to believe sometime later. And Steve tuckered himself out. Like really he tuckered himself out. So
He's a
Nancy
sleepy boy.
he's a sleepy boy, and it always throws me off because the lighting in that scene, and it's just the pool lights. It looks
Yeah,
like it's the next morning because the
yeah.
window.
At first, that's what you think because it's so bright in the room and you can see all of the plaid wallpaper and the plaid curtains.
Dear God, plaid nightmare. And Nancy basically has to do the walk of shame.
Yeah.
And we've all been there. Loch Nora must have been somewhat close to the Wheeler house because she walks back. She
Yeah.
assumes Barb went home
Yeah.
and she gets confronted by Karen.
Right. Which, I mean, another kind of instance of supportive mom because Karen is upset with Nancy, but she's not angry with her. And I
Yeah.
think she's really kind of hurt that Nancy isn't giving her more and that Nancy's so kind of shut off. But I mean, I do understand where Nancy was coming from too, because that was something like personal to her that she had
Yeah.
just gone through. And I don't think she was really ready to process it yet. And her mom was like a little aggressive with like wanting the information.
Yeah.
So as a teenager, like putting myself in her shoes, I could
Mhm.
totally kind of understand. But I also, now being older, like see where Karen was coming from too. So it was
Mhm.
like, yeah, it was, I think, a really well done scene between the two of them.
And I'm telling you, I keep going back to that, episode where we were picking like our favorites, and you're like, Karen's my favorite mom. And at first I was like, really? And then the more and more I started rewatching her scenes, I'm like, she's very supportive. And she knows what Nancy was doing. And she doesn't like really scold her, even though she came back past curfew while a kid is missing in the area. And she's just telling her yet again, you can talk to me. And Nancy's a little bitchy, but she went through, like you said, something personal. and she goes to bed.
I just think it's fascinating because I know I've mentioned this before, but it will be so cool if we find out that Karen does know more in season 5, then we can like go back and rewatch all of this, like knowing that her mom actually had been through something similar before and was kind of like, you can talk to me because like I might know what you're
Mhm.
going through kind of
Yeah.
thing. So I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I think it will be really cool if it is.
A lot of theories going around with Karen, and they've been blown up ever since the season 4 posters were released. I
Yeah.
would like to think that there's more to her character, that, like you said, there's more that meets the eye. So that was like, it's just this ongoing theme, which, I'll probably bring up again, of a mother's love. I think this episode really shows between Joyce and Karen, like a mother's love and how important it is.
Yeah. We'll get there, but that's how it ends too.
Hmm.
Like the ending of this episode.
Big time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
So,
yeah, no, love Karen. So we go back to the next day. Jonathan wakes up and he's hearing Joyce, and she's in Will's room, and she has like fucking 20 lamps. I
all
don't know
the
where
lamps.
and she's almost like past hysteria. She's just rocking back and forth. And Jonathan, you can just tell he's so frustrated because he sees his mother spiraling. He's like, it's just electricity, mom, like enough. And you can tell, like, she's kind of on the edge.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for one thing, I feel like we open so many scenes to like Jonathan sleeping throughout the show, which I think is great. And what is that tapestry behind his bed? Because he takes it with him all the way to California.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I guess it's very like iconic at this point, like, and it represents Jonathan's bedroom, but like
Mhm.
it's very weird. Like,
I do love that there's a poster in Will's room, which is Jaws, my all-time favorite movie, and then there's a poster of Evil Dead, which, if anybody knows me, I am a Sam Raimi girl, and that is pointed out later on by, Lonnie being like, "That's inappropriate," but it's in his room, and I just think, like we said, one day we're gonna do an episode where we're just gonna, like, analyze their rooms and break it down, but I do love those little things that you see him in the background and it catches your eye.
yeah, but the scene with Jonathan and Joyce, her emotion, like, in that scene, it's just, like, so raw, and it's, like, one of, like you said, she's past hysterical, she's, like, exhausted, she hasn't slept in 3 days,
Yep.
like, it's so she does such a good job with that scene, I think.
I do love that, he's like, "You don't need more lamps," which, I don't know, I always think of that movie Dewey Cox where they're like, "He needs more or less blankets." She needs more lamps.
Don't worry, we get more light bulbs soon.
We definitely do. So, we cut to Mike's basement,
Mike's basement.
and this is what I really like, and it's such a subtle thing, but they show what they're bringing for their, quest, and
Yeah,
Lucas starts taking things out, and he's like, obviously, they belong to his father, and he's like, "From Nam, from Nam, from
yeah,
Nam." So, his dad is in Vietnam, which
yeah.
that lines up perfectly, and our sweet Dustin, I don't know, he's the Stacy of the group. He pulls out all these snacks.
I'm gonna buy these snacks for us when we go to Atlanta, okay? This I have a
Yes!
list. We're gonna have Nutty Bars, Bazookas, Pez, Smarties, Pringles, Nilla Wafers, Apple, Banana, and Trail Mix.
Stacy is gonna shit her pants. I love that you wrote them down. I just as soon as I saw the Pringles, that was my Vietnam flashback of, nearly being
Yeah,
blinded by a crumb of it. But I do love that he's like, "We need nourishment for our travels."
I know, and then Elle eats them all later, which good for her,
I do
but,
love that.
I also love the first, we see Lucas with his wrist rocket, so, like, the slingshot, which
Which,
so cool because, I don't know, like, I just hope that we get some, like, callbacks to this, like, in season 5 too, with, like, Lucas getting to fight the monster and, like, shoot it in the eye and blind it.
Could you
Like,
imagine if he, like, busts out the wrist rocket? Like, chills. And it's such a subtle, like, nod to Stephen King's It, because I've mentioned this before, that's what they use to take out Pennywise, and they melt down, like, one of the parents' silver earrings because 'cause they're like, "Well, maybe he's like a werewolf, and that's how we kill him," and they use the slingshot. So just seeing him with his wrist rocket, he's like, "This is gonna take out the monster." And
yeah.
I love that they have to go to school and,
Wait, 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 wait. Star Wars reference. We can't not talk about the Millennium Falcon.
oh my god, I freaking forgot about that. How bad is that?
So Elle's face, because Dustin is like trying to get her to use her powers again, and picks up Mike's big Millennium Falcon, which I'm like, I want that.
I
Like,
know.
that's so cool. And that's the spaceship that he's
Mhm.
holding, if you didn't know. But and he's like, here, make it fly, and just drops it. And she's just looking at him like, you are such an idiot.
Yeah, you're an
Like,
idiot. Like, I'm not performing for you. I'm not a monkey.
yeah, Mike's like, she's not a dog.
I freaking Dustin. But I do love that Mike, before he leaves, he's like, I want you to meet us after school at 3:15 at the power lines behind my house. And he kind of has to like slowly explain it to her because she doesn't know the concept of time. So he puts his watch on her wrist and goes, when the numbers turn 3:15, that's when you go outside and meet us. So I do love that that's something she carries on even in season 2, where, like, they're
Yeah,
just trying to correct her. They're like, "No, 5:30, not 5:30."
yeah,
It
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, yeah, it's cute, and it's another thing that kind of, like, carries through. But then we cut to Hawkins High with
Oh,
our
man.
iconic hallways with the green and orange stripes, like,
And
it's
Nancy,
just the
you can
best.
tell this is like Walk of Shame 2.0. She, suddenly thinks that everybody knows what she was doing and stuff.
Yeah.
And I love that Steve is just so sweet. He comes by her locker, checking on her. And I never really noticed the height difference between them.
Yeah, she's
She's
very small.
she's tiny,
Yeah,
she's petite, and Drew
yeah.
Carey's like, I think he's almost 6 feet, but wow, like, whew.
Yeah, and I think it must be, like, I think she's closer in height with Charlie,
Yes.
with Jonathan, so we don't it's not as drastic when they're
Mhm.
together, but yeah, he's a lot taller than her, and just, like, standing at her locker with her, like, he just has the biggest hard eyes, like, he
Oh,
is adorable, and he's just
he's checking in on
gazing
her.
at her, like,
Yeah, I love
so
that he tries to reassure her. He's like, "Oh, I didn't tell anybody," and he's like, "You're being paranoid," just being like a really sweet boyfriend. I'm like, "Where the fuck were those when I went to school?" And I love that he, like, points out the little butterfly sticker and stuff. It's a really cute scene,
it's
but then
adorable,
she
yeah.
goes to class, and I don't know about you, but when she asks the girl, Allie, who's sitting in front of her, "Have you seen Barb?" Because her seat's empty. Allie's a little bitchy. She's like,
Yeah.
"Shouldn't you know?" I'm like, "Damn."
Right, but, like, I mean, I kinda understood where that girl was coming from, like, that's your best friend, like,
Mhm, they must be
shouldn't you
always
know?
together. But I love that she notices the empty seat, and that's the beginning of her being like, "Huh." We then cut to Powell, Callahan, and Hopper, and they're going to the lab, and I do love the reference to Reagan's Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah, and, like, talking about making space lasers to, like, shoot up the blow the Ruskies to smithereens, I think is what he said.
Mhm.
But, also, Powell says that it's, like, Emerald City, so that was a
Yep,
fun little, like,
little
Wizard of
reference.
Oz type reference,
'Cause
which
isn't it like they call the lab the Department of Energy, and that's
yes.
kinda like their cover, and I do like that, like, you can tell Hopper is experienced. Clearly, he was a city, detective or cop, and he kinda, like, is able to talk his way into going inside to check it out, which I really
Yeah,
liked.
yeah, and I think that we'll get to that, but I think they were expecting him.
Yeah.
But then we go back to Mike's basement, and of course, Elle is now making the Millennium Falcon levitate.
Yeah.
So
She's like, I'm not going to
good for
perform for
her.
you bastards. Yeah.
And then she explores the house a little bit. She sits back in the lazy boy,
Hmm.
listens to the phone, like the dial tone on the phone, but she turns on the television. So I thought it was
Yes.
interesting the different things that they had on the TV. So when she
Hmm.
first turns on the television, it's actually Ronald Reagan
Yeah.
talking about Lebanon and Syria before she changes the channel. On the next channel, it's He-Man. So I
Yeah.
went down a little rabbit hole about that last night because I guess is it like Masters of the Universe? I think is what
Oh,
like the
it is
the
such a campy movie, but it's almost like a must.
yeah, and
You kind of
I
have to
guess
watch it.
his like tagline is like he holds up the sword and says like I have the power, and that's what like changes him or something like that.
Hmm.
But there's a crossover action figure line at Target, like, recently of, like, Skeletor, which is the
The
villain
villain.
in
Yeah.
He-Man, and the Demogorgon, and I'm
That's
like,
interesting.
"This is so weird that there's, like, this kind of, like, crossover
Mm.
He-Man thing going on," like, so, I don't know, that was interesting for sure,
And if you
and
remember in season 2, Erica is making He-Man make out with her Barbie.
yes. Yeah, then there's, like, a commercial, we don't see it, but we hear it for, like, a Harmony Treasures collection gift that will last forever, and gospel music on the next channel. Then we get to the Coke ad, and
Yep.
that's what makes her have her flashback.
Mhm.
So she flashes back to her at the lab when they're, like, getting her to kind of test her powers, and, of course, now I'm seeing all of the, references to Firestarter.
Isn't it like and I'm so glad you checked that out, and guys, I cannot stress enough, it is streaming on Netflix, please check it out. It is Stranger Things had it been made into a movie, and it's just so interesting that obviously we get a call back to that scene in season 3, and they did the promotional, like, new Coke for season 3, but you usually see somebody with a Coca-Cola because that was a very, very popular soda brand, they probably call it Pop because they're in the Midwest. But I always think that was interesting that she actually has that ability, which for a child, that's a little terrifying that she's able to crush things. And you wonder, well, how strong are her powers? And then we do our montage of Joyce hanging up the lights. And that's when I noticed the dog again.
I know. He's there. The dog is there, but she does not have enough Christmas lights, so
No,
she has to run out and buy some more at her
that
work.
that scene is just so iconic. I love that "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" is playing. She's just putting, like, box after box after box of Christmas lights, and her boss is just looking, and he goes to say something, and she goes, "Just ring it up, Donald." Just queen. Love that.
It's so good. But then they go back to the lab, and Hopper is kind of looking in the tunnel,
Mhm.
and they go inside, right? This is where
Yeah.
they go inside. Yeah. So they go inside because the people are like, "Oh, we've got cameras everywhere. If
Mhm.
Will had snuck in through that tunnel, we would have seen him." And they show Hopper the security footage. But again, like you said, Hopper's good at this. He's not
Mhm.
dumb. He
Yep.
comes out of there and he's like, What do you remember about that night, guys?" Like, and they're like,
Exactly.
"Oh, we called off the search." And Powell is like, "Because of the storm." And Hopper's like,
Mhm.
"Well, I didn't see any rain on that tape, did you?"
Yeah.
So he knows that they're
They're
lying.
they're lying, and I
Yeah.
just think that's such an interesting thing that he was able to pick up on that. So right away, you're like, "Oh, shit." So we cut inside the lab, and I always liked the shot of the fan and stuff. It reminds me of the opening of Christine. And you
Mm.
see the gate through the wall, and people are in hazard suits, and they have like a winch, like a chain, and they're
Yeah.
getting it ready, which you're like, what the hell is happening? Like, what even is that?
And Brenner is there, like, suited up,
Yep.
looking at the gate.
The next scene, it was funny, I actually brought this up last night. Brandy was texting me and she was like, going, oh my God, I get so emotional at like the deaths in this. I'm such a crybaby. And I'm like, I'm a crybaby because this scene actually makes you choke up a little bit. And it's so subtle, but 11 goes upstairs to Nancy's room. And the music, like, it just almost sounds like a music box. You know, it's very
Right.
gentle, the score. And it's her looking around a normal, all American teenage girl's room. And it's almost like she doesn't know what a lot of this stuff is, but this poor girl was deprived of basically a childhood and a life. And it's her looking at everything. And then she kind of like zeroes in on Nancy's photo board because there is photographs of Barb.
Yeah, I caught that too, and I loved that she did open the little jewelry box. Like,
Hmm.
I had one of those when I was
Oh, we
little,
all
like,
did.
with the little ballerina inside or
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, then she looks at the photos and gets sad, and I don't know that I ever clocked before that she's looking at Barb.
Hmm.
And we know that she kind of knew about Will when she saw him in the photo.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that when she saw Barb, she kind of knew what was
Yeah.
going on with Barb. Then we go to my favorite scene in the episode.
Dude, I'm telling you, that's probably your best reel you've ever done. It's just so amazing. But yeah, it's the cafeteria scene. Nancy is starting to like get nervous and a little concerned because she hasn't seen Barb all day. So she sits down with Steve, Carol, and Tommy, and Carol has her leg up on the kitchen table, and she has like, I don't know, like a sore on her leg, and she's like, it's frostbite. And they're like, it's a heated pool. Like, yeah, it's November, but it's a heated pool. And I
Yeah.
love that Steve's like, whatever it is, it's disgusting. Get it off the table. We're eating.
That was such a random thing that I like, again, I'm like, are we going to get like an explanation for this? Was it something upside down related? It
Mm,
almost looked like ringworm to me.
dear
But
God.
yeah, but it was so random and gross. And Steve is like, get your foot off the table. But then she asks Tommy and Carol if they saw Barb like leave
Hmm.
the night before. And at first, Tommy's like an asshole and is like, who are you talking about?
I have no
And
idea who you're talking about.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I love how Steve kind of like stands up for Nancy and he's like,
Yeah.
guys, like, don't be a jerk. Like, did you see her? And he says, no, she was gone when we left.
Hmm.
And that's when Carol makes the comment, like, she probably couldn't handle listening to all that moaning.
And they basically recreate what they were hearing, which I'm like, that tracks. And just the look on Steve's face, like Nancy looks just humiliated and annoyed. And Steve kind of like has this smirk, like he's like, hell yeah, you know, she got it good last night. So I
But
do love that.
Tommy, that's like my favorite moment of Tommy, like just making that noise. Like,
If we ever meet Chester, we're gonna be like, can you recreate that scene? You sounded like a Muppet. It was great. But
but
yeah,
did you
ugh,
see where Nancy kind of like clocks Jonathan right after that scene,
him
like
walking
coming
by.
in?
And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
always notice it's so subtle, but Steve gives his meatloaf to Carol, which I'm like, forever the mom, just making
Yeah.
sure everybody's taken care of.
But we cut over to the middle school, and this scene, I think this is a little bit of an underrated scene because it's very sweet. But they're looking for rocks for Lucas's slingshot, which
Yep, important
I mean,
business.
it's just like such a middle school. Like, I work with middle schoolers.
Yeah.
This is classic middle school boy. Like,
I can't tell you how many times because I work in middle school as well,
yeah,
in elementary, and literally, like, I'll just be in a reading group and I'll see a boy like reaching into his pocket. And I'm like, what is that? And then he pulls out like 9 different rocks.
yeah.
And I'm like, why? Why? Like, I don't know.
Middle school boys, especially the nerdy ones, are just like hilarious. But yeah, so Lucas is teasing Mike that he loves Elle and that he wants to marry her, which, I mean, this is one of the reasons I think that like they won't necessarily end up together because it's just too obvious. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe we'll see. Like we
We'll
said,
see.
like, well, as long as they're happy and alive, we'll be happy.
Yeah,
Uh,
everybody looks great. Everybody's doing great.
but I love also that they're arguing about whether Elle is a superhero or a weirdo. So Dustin is team superhero and Lucas is team weirdo. But Dustin asks if they think she was born with her powers like the X-Men, or did she acquire them like Green Lantern? So, you know, that's not our fave, all the superhero stuff, but I do
We have
love
no
seeing
idea.
it.
No idea. But yeah, it's a little like I do love that's the one like, avenue of the whole Marvel universe that I do like. I do like X-Men. So I love that that's yet another little subtle reference. And while they're kind of teasing and having fun with Mike, the fucking bullies come in.
Yeah,
And
these awful
oh,
bullies, which we see them. Do we see them in the very first episode
the first
also?
episode, yep.
Yes. And then so they're back. Troy and I don't know the other one's name. I just
Hmm.
clocked Troy this past watch, but the bullies say something similar to Tommy because they say that Will's probably dead, right? And that their dad, which this is unfortunate that like they're actually this is true. As teachers, we know this. Like kids are not inherently like this. They get it from their fucking parents.
Yep.
Like,
They can be so goddamn cruel because they're sponges, and
yes.
whatever they hear their parents say, they're gonna act like that. So they
Yeah.
basically like make a slur
Yeah.
reference to Will, It's such a low blow. And I
Yeah.
just cannot stand it. And like, what do they do? Do they trip Mike?
Yeah. They trip Mike. And then so Lucas and Dustin help him up. And they Dustin is like, here's the perfect rock. And they're
Isn't
just
it the one
all
that Mike lands on too and like cuts his face? He's like, this is
yeah.
it. This is the
This is
monster
it.
killer.
And their faces, like Lucas is just, I mean, Dustin is just like so cute. He's like, yeah, it'll be okay. And then Lucas is like smile in that
So happy.
scene and just like glowing. He's like, this is it. Like
Is the monster killer. I'm like, they are middle school boys, 100%.
they're adorable. Speaking of the whole middle school boys, do you remember somebody posted a video like recently and I shared it on my story? It
Mhm.
was an old video, but it was like the Duffer brothers like watching the boys like off camera, like it was like, you know, Finn and Gaten
Yeah.
and when they were little, like doing some sort of antics. And I was like, can you imagine what like this must have been like on set? Because we work with like kids like this. Like it was basically probably chaos all of the time. Like how did they get anything done?
I remember Joe Keery was like, I'll never forget the first time he met them all. He goes, all the kids poured in. And, Millie, Finn, Gaten, Caleb. And he was like, they were like pumped up on sugar. He goes, it was like a tornado that went through. Kids that age, there's something else.
There's
So
something else, that's
they
for
really
sure.
are.
Yeah. So I could just imagine what it was like working with them. Like
Dear God. We switch over to the dark room.
yes.
And Jonathan, what were you thinking?
He's an idiot. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna go develop these photos at school, like where
Mhm.
anyone could see you. Like bad call, buddy. Bad call.
This character, Nicole,
Yeah.
she walks by and happens to look. And he
Right. And
like,
at
oh,
first, it's not like she was mean to him when she
no.
first saw him. She came in and like
She
was
said
pleasant.
hi.
She said hi, and then she glances over and she's like, "What the fuck?" Like,
Yeah, like,
and
what
he
is
is
this?
like all of a sudden like pulling them
Scrambling to
down.
get them and cover them
Yeah.
up.
But you could tell she probably had maybe been to a party at Steve's house before because she knew who those people were and where they were because, you know, later she goes and tells Steve. But
She runs to Steve, which I'm like, I don't blame you.
yeah, but this is
Ooh,
one of my favorite transitions in the
yes.
show with you've got the red light bulb in the dark room
Hmm.
and it like starts glowing and then suddenly you're at Joyce's house and it's one of the Christmas lights.
Chef kiss. That was amazing. And I love that we cut back to Joyce and she is hanging up Christmas lights literally all over her house.
Yeah. Iconic. I want to do this to my house at
Me
Christmas
too.
one year.
I'm
Like,
telling you, I'm gonna have to take a picture. I'm looking at my 2 bookcases and I have Christmas lights starring along. And it just gives a good ambience. I don't know. Love me some Christmas lights. I want more.
they're great. They're great. But yeah, it's just so iconic. She's got the Christmas lights everywhere, all up and down the hallways, all over the house. And
Which I think it's so sweet. So Karen stops by. She's got little Holly with her, and she's brought a casserole because that's just what moms did back in the day, that you bring a casserole. So she comes in, and we're gonna talk about the next scene in a minute, but we then transition to the library where it's Hopper and Powell, and her name's Marissa, I believe. She's the
yeah.
librarian.
So at first I sometimes thought that it was like the woman from the first or second episode, but it's not, because that was some other name.
Yeah.
So you kind of see that Hop's a little bit of a womanizer.
Yeah, he's let's just say, he's made his way through the town. And
Yeah.
I do love that she kind of rips him a new one. Like, you ghosted me, basically. And Paul is just like, the librarian, really? And Hopper just kind of shrugs, like sexy bear that he
But
is.
she's the same librarian and in season 4, right? And also season 2 with Dustin.
When
Yeah.
he goes, I need my paddles. It's like,
Yeah.
sell the books.
Yeah. So I guess season 3 is the only season we don't go to the library because it's summertime and we're at the mall the whole time.
Which I heard from our friend Jackie that you can actually go in there and they have like Stranger Things, like merch, and they have like props and stuff there that you can take pictures. Which
Oh,
I'm like,
nice.
that's cool. That might have to be a little pit stop when we go down
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've seen the building, but I didn't go in.
there.
Yeah. So that is very cool. Hopper goes in the library.
And they do a really cool montage. The theme, like the song, like the music, excuse me, it fits perfectly. It reminds me of Tangerine Dream, the theme from Firestarter, as they're doing the old school looking through all the files, which I'm like, God damn it. Like, kids these days have no idea how lucky they have it, because back in the day, you basically had to manually go through every single issue instead of just typing and Googling it. So they're trying to find a connection. And I do like that Hopper's like, we're also going to be looking up the Hawkins lab. And I liked it, the librarian. She's like, aren't you supposed to be looking for that kid? And he's like, we are. And it's
Right.
him and Powell digging deep,
Exactly. Yeah. Some of the headlines were like, Hawkins lab blocks inquiry, alleged experiments, abuse, and then MK Ultra exposed, which, I mean, I feel like I have not gone super deep into this, but MK Ultra was like a real thing that
Yep.
happened. So with like the experiments with the psychedelics and stuff like that. But then he starts seeing Brenner's name popping up in the
Yep.
newspaper, and he sees what's Eleven's mom's name?
Terry.
Terry Ives. Yes. So he sees that name. So those are some of kind of the newspaper articles that you start seeing them go through at the library. Then we're back at the Byers house.
And I do like that, like, Karen's, like, getting the stove ready to heat up the casserole. And I like Joyce, like, she's kind of almost like trying to make up an excuse because this does look a little crazy. And she's just like, oh, Will always loves Christmas. So I just thought, if he, ever came back, it would be like he was home. And she's trying to like scramble to make an explanation. And Karen's just so sweet. She's just like, no, I understand, And she sits down with her and she starts, talking about how Mike skipped school the other day. And that, they're just kind of chatting it up. And little 3-year-old adorable Holly goes down the hallway and she's following the lights that are glowing almost like a pathway.
Right. It's almost like whatever that was is trying to lure her away, right? Like, which we don't know, was that Will? Because it's kind of weird that Will was trying to lure Holly into the bedroom. So was it something more malevolent, like one of the monsters? But she, follows the lights down the hallway, goes into the room with all the lamps. The lights are like swirling around her, and then it goes quiet. It's very dramatic. You hear like the groaning of it sounds like the Demogorgon or Vecna, but a hand starts to kind of like come through the wall, like we had seen. Joyce had seen something kind of come through the wall, and then they suddenly realize that Holly's missing and go and find her. But Joyce says to Holly, like, did you see something? And Holly says, yes. Like,
Mhm.
and I already said, like, this girl has seen so much because last episode, I totally think she saw 11 coming down the stairs at her
Yeah.
house during dinner. Like, and there's a lot of other instances, like in season 3, when she's on the Ferris wheel and she sees the
The
trees
trees move.
moving. Like, this girl has seen a lot. So
Mhm.
definitely think Holly is going to have a bigger role in season 5, but we'll
Absolutely,
see.
yeah. A lot of
Yeah.
close calls, we'll leave it at that, but I do love that Joyce kinda, like, rushes into the room and scoops her up and, she's like, "Hey, you can't be in here," and, Karen's just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." She's a little bit of a wanderer now because that's what toddlers do, and I just love the line that she's like, "Karen, thank you for the casserole, but you need to leave."
Yeah, that's great. But I do think it's interesting that she was kind of like saying, like, if you need anything, Ted and I are here for you. Like, she was
Mhm.
trying to be involved,
Yeah.
like, with, again, maybe it doesn't mean anything, but
But listen, we're digging deep. You
I
never
know.
know. It's a very, like, odd setup, but I do like that Joyce kinda, like, scooped up Holly just in time because we don't know if she was gonna get taken or hurt or killed. We cut back to the high school, and Nancy is at a phone booth, and I do like the Battle of the Bands
Yeah,
poster on it.
yeah,
Everyone's like, "Eddie definitely went to that."
exactly.
But I love that she calls Miss Holland,
Yeah,
and she's kinda asking like, "Oh, have you seen Barb?" And she kinda slips up a little bit because they made a cover story for the night
right,
before, and
right.
I do love that, like, you yet again, a mother's love. You see Mrs. Holland go, "Nancy, if you see Barb, like, tell her to call me right away." So
Yeah,
already, Nancy's beginning to panic a little bit that, "Uh-oh, where's my friend?"
right, exactly. So then we're still at school, and
Mhm.
Nicole has, spilled the beans to Steve and company about the stalker photos.
And I watched the scene on Stranger Things Day with Jeanette and Brandy, and they were like, Steve took it too far with the camera. I think it was justified 100%. Jonathan
Yeah,
was a fucking creep. He shouldn't have taken those photos. And, obviously we know what happens at the end of the season. Steve kind of redeems himself, but
yeah.
he look, just drops the camera and it smashes. And man, FYI, Steve in those jeans.
I know, it's good. And I love Steve in this scene because he does, like, put on that kind of, like,
Mhm.
persona of, like, he's strong and confident and, like, he feels like he's
Yeah.
standing up for his girlfriend. Like, this guy took pictures of her undressing. Like, that's that's weird.
And
Like,
it wasn't a physical fight or anything, he dropped the camera,
no.
he's like,
Exactly.
"Perverts need to get their toys taken away." And, of course, you have Tommy, like, just heckling in the background, giggling, and they go because I think there's a basketball game, which I'm like,
Yeah,
"Wa
yeah.
wasn't Steve on the team?"
Right, that's weird, that whole thing, but I think it's interesting because we know that Jonathan wasn't actually stalking Nancy. He was
Exactly.
looking for his brother, and he just kinda got caught up, and, like, I feel like he's just, like, has that creative eye, and they were really cool pictures. Like,
Mhm,
we see both sides. Like, I'm not condemning Jonathan
mhm.
either, but it is weird,
He's
and I
an
think Jon
outcast, he's, a little weird and stuff, socially
Yeah,
awkward. He should have stopped taking the photos, but he continued, and that's what
yeah.
happened.
And he got the photo of Barb, so Nancy
Exactly.
picks up those pieces, which we come back to that. But yeah, they're kinda just chilling outside the gym waiting for the game to start,
Which
which
what
didn't look like
game?
they were getting ready or anything, so yeah, I never really understood what was going on there. But maybe they were gonna watch, like, the JV basketball game and they were on varsity. I don't know, but,
Yeah.
like, Nancy even told her mom that she was going to the game because when she comes home, her mom's like, "How was the game?"
Yeah, was it a
Like,
volleyball game? Like, you and I are puzzled. Side note, earlier this week, Megan texted me and she was like, with a photo, and she went, "I never realized that Steve's Beamer has a sunroof."
oh, yes, because the Beamer's in this scene too, right?
Mhm.
Because 'Cause they're all standing by Steve's car, Is this
Dude,
the first time we see Steve's car?
I believe it is, and I'm not even
Yeah.
kidding you. I was at work and I'm just literally Googling it and I'm like, no way, no way. And then there was a shot in season 2 of him and Nancy, correcting his paper. And I went, oh my God, there is a
Yeah.
sunroof.
Yeah. You can see it really clearly. I think it's open in the scene in season 4 where
Him
he's
and
driving
Robin.
Robin to work, but it's hard to tell, and it took some convincing for
Mhm.
Stacy to believe that there is a sunroof, but
I'm telling
because
you,
I think it has some sort of like metal insert that goes
yeah,
in.
it retracts.
Yeah, so like you can't really see it when it's closed.
It's so
So,
funny because my coworker, like, knows how obsessed I am, and I'm like, "No fucking way," and I'm literally Googling and I'm sending photos to Megan going, "No," and then I'm a bit of a car nut, so I'm looking up that model and this and that, and my brother-in-law actually has a Beamer, I think it's like an '81 or something, and I remember it has a sunroof. So,
yeah.
I then found the scene and I was like, "Son of a bitch. You're absolutely right, that has a sunroof." So, it
Yeah.
just goes to show you, like, these little things that, us hardcore fans, we're digging deep, baby.
Yeah, and I was not the person who realized it, someone else did, and I was just kinda going with it, but, like, that it is important information because we thought that this antenna that has been installed
Yeah.
in season 5 in Steve's car was, like, drilled through the roof, but, like, I'm pretty sure it's just going through the sunroof,
Yeah.
so makes it a little bit better.
Clearly, Nancy feels bad. She feels anxious. And we've all been there where like something is bubbling up and she like knows officially something's wrong. Will's missing. Now suddenly Barb's missing. So she books it back home.
She wants to go look for Barb
Yeah.
because we'll get to it, but she goes back to Steve's house.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Yeah, yeah. We actually cut to L. So
Mhm.
it's 315, so she's out by
315,
the
baby.
power lines and she sees a cat, which it's an orange cat.
Was it Muse?
I don't think it was Muse, but I was like, this orange cat, interesting.
Maybe it's a little throwback to Alien.
Oh, I don't know. Is there a cat in that? I haven't ever seen it.
Oh, dude, please, for my sake, watch Alien and Aliens, the sequel.
Okay. I've heard they're really good.
They
I can
are,
watch them. They're not scary.
they're scary. It's literally a fucking alien that has acid for blood, but there is a cat in it named Jonesy, and it's orange. So anytime I see an
Okay, but
orange cat,
I need a spoiler that the cat is okay
the
if I'm
cat
gonna
makes
watch
it,
this.
which
Okay,
I'm telling you, as long as the cat makes it,
then I'm good.
you're
Yeah,
good. You're
I'm
freaking
fine.
good.
Yep.
So
I
everybody
don't
was at
care if people die. If the cat dies.
that's why we're all a little nervous about A Quiet Place Day 1. We're all
Exactly,
like, "God damn it, there's a
exactly.
cat."
Which I think it's so funny that, like, Lupita,
Mhm.
like, travels with her
With
cat.
her cat.
Like, her cat was in the hotel room with her at the Oscars. Like,
Did you see her video of
that
her,
is
like,
badass.
on the floor trying to talk to her cat, and the cat, like, turns its head, and she's like, "Damn, that's cold." I just love the photos of JQ holding it.
Yeah, I'm obsessed now with her because of the relationship she has with her cat because I'm jealous,
We get
but
it, yeah.
yeah, so she sees this cat and she has another flashback to the lab because they, I guess, were trying to get her to kill this cat, which, like,
Yeah.
why the fuck? Like,
This is one of my all-time favorite lab scenes because it's almost like they're gonna weaponize her. And
yes.
that's something like, obviously, you saw that in Firestarter where they're like, okay, as a baby, she could, if she got upset, say she was wet or, her bottle was late, she would start a small fire. What's going to happen when she's older? How strong will her powers be? And then it's another reference to X-Men Days of Future Past, where they're literally like, one person can control metal, which most of our weapons are made out of, and one of them has the power to literally transform into anybody they want. So they can transform into the president and do a nuclear strike. So I've always said this for years, guys, and I'm not trying to sound too crazy. Let me put on my metal foil hat. But if there ever was somebody who had those kind of powers, I feel like they could never, ever use them publicly because the government would try to weaponize them. And I think that's what they were trying to do with the cat. They were trying to make her maybe crush the cat like the Coke can.
Yeah.
And she refuses. And her punishment is basically to be thrown into this like room, which kind of makes sense because she did not like the closet door closed when my cat
Right.
hide her.
Like isolation. But she ends up, instead of killing the cat, killing those 2 guards, which when
Whew.
we watched Henry
Mhm.
kill guards in season 4, it made me think of this scene because he kind of
Goosebumps. Yep.
kills them the same way that she does in this scene.
Mhm.
But Brenner is like beside himself happy
Yeah,
because
he sees how
basically
strong she is.
she demonstrated her power, which is what he wanted her to do anyway. So
And you can
this is
see
like,
that it
ugh,
drained her. One gets, like,
yes.
literally, like, thrown against a wall, another one, their neck snaps, and you just see, like, her eyes are all bloodshot, she's really weak, and he's just like the music score just makes you have chills, and he's so gentle with her like a father, and he's, like, incredible, and there's that famous scene where he picks her up and he carries her because she's so weak, and I do love when they were filming season 4, they decided to, like, recreate it again, which, I was just dying at. But
Yeah.
that
She was a
scene,
little bit bigger now.
I know, I love it when, he's like, "No, no, you're not bigger, you're just taller," and they do it again, but, yeah,
But, I also,
such a good
did you
scene.
notice that it looked like there was blood coming from her ear also?
Mhm. So, obviously, that took, like, an incredible amount of strength to do that, and it's almost like our first inkling that it drains her when she
Mhm.
does it.
Exactly. So then she is with the boys in the
Mhm.
woods and they're kind of like looking for Will. So she rides off on the bikes with them. There is a pretty iconic scene in this part where she's talking to Mike and he's
Mm.
kind of like admitting that the kids bully him,
Yep.
and 'cause she's asking him like why he's hurt
Mhm.
from when they tricked him, but this is where he calls them, like, mouth breathers, so
I
that's, like,
love that.
another thing that, like, never goes away.
Mhm.
She kinda latches on to that, so
We go back to Nancy. She sees the car, and that really, I think, sells it that, okay, she never made it home. This is not good. So she goes back to Steve's house, and, it's just so odd seeing it in the daylight. And she's looking around, and she kind of goes in the wooded area, and you just see like a glimpse of something. And it scares her, and she runs away.
yeah, and I think it's important that we know that she saw that car because it comes back later that the people have found the car and it's
Yep.
not where she saw it.
Hmm.
So that's how she kind of knows that it's like, no, that car was where she left it with Barb.
Yeah.
But then we go back to Joyce.
And I noticed the porch swing because you're building the Lego set right away. I like zeroed in and I went, there's the porch
Oh,
swing.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yep.
The dog is whining, which is such a good callback because there's a scene in Poltergeist where the dog is whining at a wall. And literally the mom is like, "What's the matter with you?" So the dog's whining, noticing the lights. And I do like that she's holding like a tangle knot. It's huge of Christmas lights, which we've all been there before. And kind of almost like a Ouija board, she starts communicating with Will.
Yeah, and she does the whole 1 blink for yes, 2 blinks for no, so she knows that he's there, but then when she asks if he's safe, he does the 2 blinks for
Yeah.
no. So, I mean, we're really building the, like, suspense here, like, the rest of this episode is kind of like a crescendo, I feel like, but
Hmm.
that's when she decides, like, "Okay, I need to know more, I need to know
Yeah.
more
How do
specifically,"
I
like,
communicate with him? Yep.
and writes the letters, which you're right, is totally like a Ouija board.
Yeah, I think that's just so cool, and it's such an iconic, like, scene of the ABCs basically written on the wall so she can actually try to get some answers.
How cool would it be if they, like, used a Ouija board in season 5?
Could you imagine, dude? I'm telling you.
Communicating with Eddie.
So we go back to the Wheeler's house, and Nancy comes in, and, right away, Karen's like, "In the kitchen." She goes, "Oh, you're home early, did you have fun at the game?" And Nancy's crying, and she basically tells her, like, I think something terrible has happened.
So she finally like tells her mom what's going on.
Mhm.
Then we see Hopper and Powell back at the library talking about Brenner,
Yeah.
but they get a call on the walkie and
Mhm.
they rush to leave. So again, we're kind of like moving quickly here. Al is bringing the boys to the
Back to the
Byers
house.
house.
Yep.
Yeah, and she's like, this is where he is. He's hiding. And we know now that like it's
She was
true.
100% right. It was just
Right.
in the upside down. The kids are kind of frustrated with her. They're like, no, this is where he lives. And it's dark out now. And then you see police, cruisers speed by, lights and sirens on, and the kids know something's up. So they decide to follow it.
Yeah, this is one of the like most heart-wrenching scenes I think in the
Oh,
show.
I
It
know.
just like kills me. And so they rush after the cop cars and the ambulances and they go, towards the quarry. But then it's Joyce
Yep.
talking to Will, and he says she's asking him where he is. And again, just like Al just said,
Hmm.
he spells out right here.
Right here.
Like,
Yep.
yes. And then he spells out the iconic.
Yeah. She goes like, what should I do? What should I do? And
Yeah.
literally goosebumps.
Yeah. It's
He's
chills still
He
right now.
spells out run, and just like the music cue and the lights flicker and you see the wall moving again.
Yeah. Well, I think it comes through,
It
right?
comes through, and this is our
Yeah.
if this is our first time we've really gotten a good look at the Demogorgon, which how
Mhm.
fucking frightening is that? And
Yeah.
she
With its closed
screams.
off head,
Yeah,
right?
it's little flower head. It's
Yeah.
it's all wilted. It's
Yeah.
closed, but it crawls out, and she books it. She pulls a Stacy. She books it the fuck out of that house and races out. And we cut back to the kids, and they end up at the quarry.
Yeah.
And just the music.
They're pulling Will, a body, out of the quarry, and you see it, and he's wearing Will's outfit.
Yeah.
Like, somehow they figured out what Will was wearing
Yeah, like,
because
what the fuck?
that's what he has on.
And I love that Hopper, yet again, this is why we love Hopper. He gets there finally, and he sees them
Yeah.
fishing the body out, and he goes, please don't be the kid.
Yeah. But we see
God,
that
I'm
it
like
is.
choking up right now talking
I
about
know.
this.
It's so emotional. Then we see the kids looking and Mike's like, it can't be Will, it can't be.
Yeah.
And Lucas is like, it's Will, it's really Will. And
Yeah.
I'm getting chills.
You tell you and me work with children really.
I know.
And
And Mike is so angry at
Yeah.
11, like, because she said he was alive. Like, so he yells at her, he runs away, which I always think to myself, like, I guess Elle rode back with one of the other boys.
most
Like,
likely
because,
Dustin, because
yeah,
Lucas was probably like, "Get the fuck away from me."
yeah,
And they start the iconic song of Peter Gabriel's cover of David Bowie's "We Could Be Heroes,"
yeah.
and it's perfect because
It's so good.
it cuts to like Joyce running down the driveway. She's fucking booking it. And Jonathan gets there with, the headlights are shining. And I love the shot of him getting out, being like, Mom, what's wrong? What's wrong? And he's trying to comfort her.
And
then
they're hugging, and then Mike
oh,
gets home to his house, and Nancy and Karen are in the living room with Barb's parents.
yep.
And Mike comes in sobbing and is hugging Karen. And it's just those two. I got chills and had to pause the TV last night because,
Mhm.
like, this, I think, again, is going to be like another parallel to season 5
Yep.
because, like, people have been talking about how, like, Mike is going to be like Jonathan's age in season 5.
Yep.
So it's like, if Holly does get captured, it'll be like the same age that Jonathan was
Exactly.
when Will went missing.
And just the mirrored, like, with this song, this beautiful, sweeping, emotional song playing, you see Mike hugging his mom. And then the last shot, which I'm like, this is so iconic, it's Joyce and Jonathan hugging each other. And as you see, like,
The police cars.
the police car slowly approaching, and just yet again, the power of a mother's love. Like, you just see these two mirrored scenes, and you get chills because the police are coming to tell Joyce that her son
Yeah.
is bunny ears dead. And
Yeah.
what an
And
episode.
it's even knowing that that's not Will after I've watched this a million times, like that
Mhm,
scene is still just so powerful and
mhm.
emotional. Like it's
Chef kiss.
insane.
Chef
Yeah.
kiss.
Oh my gosh, such a good episode.
I'm telling you, this was kinda like, I know this wasn't the first Netflix show because there were, like, several others that came before it, but just the concept of, we grew up at an age where you'd watch an episode per week, and you had to wait a week until you saw the next episode. This kinda started the whole binging thing, which you and I absolutely love, and I just remember back in 2016 literally being like, "Oh my god, what's gonna happen next? He's dead. Like, what is this his spirit?" Like, so goddamn good, and the scene of Joyce trying to communicate yet again, I can't, recommend Poltergeist enough because there's a scene where the mom is speaking out loud to her daughter and she's like, "Are you safe? Are you actually here?" So this had a lot of great callbacks to a lot of classics.
Yeah, I need to watch that for sure. I guess that's my next one.
That's your homework assignment.
Poltergeist.
You're gonna be like, "What the fuck is this, Stacy?" I look at him like, "Don't see Evil Dead Rise. You won't
No,
be able
no,
to
thank
handle it."
you.
No, thank you.
So let's talk about, I guess, the filming updates because
Oof.
we've kind of alluded to a lot of things, I think, throughout our conversation.
Mhm.
But we just want to preface this that we are going to avoid any like blatant potential spoilers because a lot of the stuff that we're talking about this week was not officially released by the Duffer
Confirmed.
Brothers.
Yeah.
So it's leaked information. So if you don't want to hear it, skip ahead a couple minutes.
Yeah, don't
But
listen. Spoilers. Semi-spoiler alert. We're not gonna be specific.
actual spoilers, because I mean, the thing is, who knows if any of this is
It's
even
true. Yep.
true. So we had leaked information that the casting for the character of Holly Wheeler
Mhm.
is changed. So she was originally played by two twins,
Yeah.
which makes sense because a lot of times with like kids, they have, restraints on how long they can work per day. So I think
Mhm.
that's why, Mary Kate and Ashley, that's what I always
That's
think
always
of
what I think of, yeah.
from Full House. But yeah, so very like, I mean, similarly, like little blonde girl twins.
Yeah.
But there is potentially a new actress playing Holly for season 5,
Mhm.
which we totally think makes sense because it needs to be a little bit of a time jump. She needs to be a little bit older. She needs to have, she's probably going to have a bigger role
Yeah, I
in
think she's
the
gonna play a
show.
bigger part, so they kinda needed, a child actor that had a lot of experience, in front of the camera, so I think this makes sense with the time jump, whichever how long it is, and, with her possibly playing a bigger role in a bigger part this season.
Yeah. And the actress that people think is going to play her, it's funny because she was it Evil Dead
Evil Dead
Rise?
Rise, yep.
And when that movie came out, which I guess was that a remake of,
Sequel.
oh, a sequel.
Yeah.
Okay. When that came out, the Duffer Brothers kind of tweeted about it
Mhm.
and said that that movie and Stranger Things season 5 share something. Oh, so it was Stranger Writers on Twitter. Their tweet said, "We rarely promote new movies on here, but Evil Dead Rise and Stranger Things 5 share something small but awesome in common."
I remember everybody was trying to analyze and figure out what that meant.
Yeah. So it would make so much sense if, that was the actress because
Yeah,
she's small but awesome.
exactly,
So
and, that's in the horror community, a lot of people were split about their thoughts of Evil Dead Rise. I am a Raimi girl at heart. I really enjoyed it, and she's adorable. So if she is in fact actually cast, I think this is actually pretty exciting. I think you and I, we kind of share similar thoughts that, the Duffer Brothers were like, season 5 is going to mirror season 1 a lot, especially with the pairings. Like, the boys are going to be back together in a group. It's going to be Hopper again with Joyce. And possibly, and this is just, our guess, Holly could be taken by,
right.
Vecna and be in the Upside Down and almost mirror the whole Will being missing.
Trying to find Will. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And because she's going to be a similar age. And there were leaked chapter titles, which again, we are not going to
Nope.
say what they were. You can find that information if that's something that you want to look for.
Mhm.
But just with that said, there is a chapter title that could potentially connect to somebody going missing as well. So maybe Holly. Also, do we want to talk about it? We'll just mention it.
We're gonna mention it, yeah.
Because we do not support this. Like, I do not want to like see a scene from season 5 before season 5. Like,
Yeah, like, just
behind the
wait.
scenes stuff, great. Stuff that Ross Duffer's putting out, fine. But like, I don't agree with people trying to like, go
Get a
to the
glimpse, get a
set
peek,
and get a
yeah.
glimpse. Yeah. So which is like, we didn't share, the stuff that was leaked when Ross Duffer shared a photo of Dustin in costume. There was leaked information about like where he potentially was
Mhm.
when that picture was shared, which we're trying to be intentionally vague just because we know not everybody wants these things like ruined for them
Yeah,
or
exactly.
potentially ruined for them. So they were filming a scene at night the other night, and it looks like somebody kind of just drove by the set and were recording, and there's an audio recording that there's a lot of speculation about what is being said in the
Yep.
recording, but it's hard to hear. Like,
It's very hard to
and
hear, and, like, the more that people are like, "Well, it's this character," so right away you think it's that character,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. And I could be convinced that it's like 5 different characters,
Oh,
like
yeah.
just based on, listening to it, because it's not obvious enough. And even what they're saying is not obvious enough. What originally
It's
people were
muffled.
saying
Yeah.
that they were saying, it could be something else. Like you
Yeah,
can't you can't really
it
tell.
was a night shoot, this person was driving by, it was being and this isn't a spoiler, it was filmed at the radio station, and, basically the whole fandom are losing their minds right now, but we're like, "Well, nothing is confirmed." That's why we're
No.
not saying names or anything. I did share our good friend Brandy, and I know you haven't seen Nightmare on Elm Street, but there's a character or somebody that screams, and it's pretty bone-chilling and blood-curdling,
Mhm.
and she goes, "That reminded me," spoiler alert, guys, "that of Johnny Depp's death in Nightmare on Elm Street." And I
Mm.
always say he gets sucked into a bed. His bed eats him, Megan. Like, what the fuck? And as he's being pulled into the bed, young, sexy, Johnny Depp, who's like 19, he's screaming for his parents. And
Mm.
that's like, I rarely, because I'm a big horror fan, I rarely get affected by death scenes. I'm like, oh, cool, gory. That one
Mhm.
always bothers me because it just sounds
Just the
so
guttural, like
blood curdling,
emotional. Yeah.
wanting his parents. And Brandy was like, that scream kind of reminded me of that. And I right away got chills. And I was like, you know what? We are just going to sit back and see what happens. We're not going
Yeah.
to panic. We
I
trust the
mean,
Duffer
no
Brothers.
matter what, season 5 is going to be a wild ride, and we know that, and we know there's gonna be so many tears shed no
Oh,
matter
yeah.
what. Like, I'm, like, crying right now, like, thinking about it just because it's gonna be over. Like, I don't even know who lives, who dies. It's gonna be over no matter what, so it's
Hmm.
gonna be emotional, so
Yeah. Get your Xanax ready, everybody. It's going to be a wild ride.
we're gonna need so much therapy.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Big time.
We probably already do, but that's another
Yeah, it's
story.
fine. We're fine. He's great. It really looks great.
Think that's the big things that
I
have
think
kinda
that's
come
the
out.
the biggest thing, and right now it's blowing up all over Twitter and Instagram. It's kind of unavoidable, but me and Megan have been really good. A lot of people have reached out to me asking, and I'm like, I don't spoil stuff for people. I'm one of
Yeah,
those
yeah,
people, it's worth a wait. Just trust the process.
and I don't care if people send it to me either,
Mhm.
like, because multiple people have sent it to me, and I'm
Guilty.
fine with that. Like, I don't it doesn't offend me. I'm not, like,
Yeah.
actively trying to avoid anything like this, but I know some people are, so I'm gonna respect that from, like,
Yeah.
resharing it.
Because I just remember in season 3, Billy's return, it got leaked and it
Mm,
spoiled it for me. And I remember being like, oh, that's a fucking bummer. But it ended up being so worth it when I watched it, so it's just one of
yeah,
those things, guys, trust the process. The Duffer Brothers have us, we're
yeah.
good.
And the thing is, like, it's keeping the hype about it strong, and,
Mhm.
like, we gotta respect that to some extent because it's like, it is a long wait, but, like, so many people are so invested that like things like this are blowing up. Like
Yeah.
that's only good press for the
Oh, yeah.
show, basically. Like any press is good press type situation. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's not like I'm offended, or I'm sure even the Duffer Brothers, like to some extent, I'm sure they don't want too much to be like revealed before they would like to reveal it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that they're happy that we're all so
We're
hyped
pumped.
about
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, so you had some stuff you wanted to share for merch this week.
Yes, I was actually pleasantly surprised. There is a wonderful Etsy and Instagram shop. They are called Ken Moose, and they sent me a really adorable Eddie Munson keychain, and he just looks
Oh,
so cute. So definitely shout out to them. Check their stuff out. Really cute artwork. And then Funko made an announcement, and I swear to God, Megan, we are fucking witches. Like,
manifestation, guys. It works apparently.
we call the four corners. Like, this is some spooky shit.
Yeah. Shout out Hannah.
Yeah, holy shit. Because literally they announced that, I think it's going to be next week, that there's going to be a new pop and it's going to be Steve Harrington. So at first, I was like, some people are like, oh, it's going to be Scoops Ahoy themed. I'm like, the only one I can think of is like a beat up Steve.
Yeah.
But then it like got confirmed that it's going to be not battle, but basically
Battle damage, I think. Is
battle
what it said.
damage Steve.
Yeah.
So basically, it's either going to be him shirtless or it's going to be him wearing Eddie's vest. Either
Right.
way,
Which is exactly what we talked about last week on the podcast with Hannah Sarah.
yeah, like that is some spooky bullshit. But then again, take my money. So,
Yeah. Like I'm getting a little nervous about our level of power here.
yeah, this is getting a little weird, guys. Just saying.
All right. Yeah. So that's awesome. I think that's it for this week.
Yeah. So next week we're going to be doing another deep dive, correct?
Next week, we will be doing another deep dive. And then we have a special guest the week after
Yes.
that. So
Very
get
exciting.
excited, guys. We are excited. So I think that's it. We will talk to you next week. I'm sure more will happen between now and then. And what is the episode that we're watching next week called?
The body.
Oh,
That is a good one. Oh my God.
Yes.
The ending to that. Get ready. Buckle up, guys.
Oh, The Body. That's such a good name too.
And that's the name of the short story that Stand By Me by Stephen K is named.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, maybe I have to read that this week.
It's a really
Should I
good short
read
story.
it?
And have you ever
Okay.
seen Stand By Me?
No, should I watch that too?
You will love it.
I have so much homework. No,
Too much homework.
I've always wanted to watch Stand By Me, so
It's
I think I
cute.
should probably watch that.
Yeah.
That movie is based on a Stephen King short story.
Yeah, which
did not
who
know
would've
that.
thought? Like, that was me when I
No.
found out he wrote Shawshank Redemption. I was like, wait, what? So it's non-horror, but it's like a coming of age thing. And you have all these amazing child actors. And
Yeah,
the one
yeah.
who really shines is the late River Phoenix, but I think you'll really, really love it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Maybe I'll watch that and I'll save Poltergeist for another week.
Save that for another week. Buckle
We'll
up.
see. All right. So that's it for today. We love you guys. Find us on social media.
Mhm.
And until then, over and out.
Over and out.
Eddie, I'm not sure I love the idea of you driving.
Oh, I'm starting to suck her. Harrington's got her. That's your big boy.
And we are back.
We're back.
Let's do this. Let's get our steady on.
Let's get our steady on. Buckle up.
So, of course, as you know, we do our little secret segment at the end to talk about fan fiction and our two favorites, Steve Harrington and Eddie Munson. So if that's not your thing, we're done. We'll talk to you next week
Bye.
for Chapter 4, The Body rewatch. But if you want to hear about what we've been reading this week, please stick around. So I'll let you start. Stacy, what have you been reading?
So I've been reading a lot of one shots, but our friend Brandy sent a really good one. It's like I'm not usually into like the reader slash
Mhm,
character,
mhm.
but this one was really good. It was called Unraveling Eddie Munson. It was from Eve Ate the Fruit, I think. Yeah, Eve Ate the Fruit. Okay, and he works at a coffee shop with the reader, and basically it's a whole sub dawn thing, and it's really fucking hot. He spits in the girl's mouth. It's fantastic.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I'm a pervert. And then I read a certain yeah.
No,
Well,
no, no. You like what you like.
there's no judgment. This is a safe
No.
place. And then I started reading A Certain Type by Anne Another Thing. I just finished the first chapter. That's a really good, steady story. And then I
Mm.
went back to an Out of My Gourd. This is an OG.
Mm.
And it was a
Mhm.
story that I think they abandoned. It's only one chapter, but it's called Guitar Romance Search Adventure. And it's
Mm.
basically a different like take where Steve, Eddie, Chrissy, Nancy, Jonathan, Argyle, they're all camp counselors. And it keeps switching back before, Steve's POV and Eddie's. And that writer was freaking talented. I wish they'd go back to this fandom because man, oh man, it's a shame that it's only one chapter, but it's so good. So I went back to some OGs. But yeah, just a lot of smut on Twitter. But besides that, all good. What about you?
Sounds like a fun week for
Oh,
sure.
hell yeah.
So the majority of this week I have spent binging Rolled a One on the Check. What is it
I gotta
called?
go back to that
Yeah.
one. Oh, damn, you
Yeah.
just reminded me. I have to write that down.
So have you read any more since we last talked about it?
No, damn. Thank God you reminded me because I really liked that. How's it
Yeah.
going?
Rolled a 1 on the check, rolled a 20 on the save. So good. It's like such a cool AU
Mhm.
and got to some cool parts where like they wanted to incorporate like evil Russians and
Ooh.
like Steve and Robin becoming like bonded
Mhm.
and like, making Steve really go through it, which I love.
We always do
But
love
like
that.
it's not there's no upside down or anything like that, so it's like
Mhm.
all real world stuff
Oh,
like that could
wow.
actually happen. I mean, Steve and Eddie have not even like met yet, so it's like a super
Wow.
slow burn. I
Slow
would
burn? Okay.
yeah, like but just having that like little like hint of it in the back
Mm.
is like enough to kind of keep you going because the story's so good and it's
Yeah.
such a creative like concept. And I think that they write Steve really well. It's a puckish wit is the author. And yeah, so I'm loving that. It's so fun. And it's funny, like Steve and Eddie are like talking on Discord and it's like,
Oh,
like
that's so cute.
modern AU for sure, which is really fun. But I'm about halfway through and I just keep in the back of my mind the fact that like it's not technically finished, which kind of sucks. But like again,
Yeah,
I'm fine with it because I'm enjoying it so much that it's fine. Like if they don't finish
exactly.
it, I'm still glad that I read it. So that has been really fun. I have listened to a couple of the podfics that I was talking to you about last week. So
Mhm.
finished He Only Knows Two Stories, which was the very first podfic that a Head of Lettuce ever recorded, which I was blown away by the fact that that was their first podfic. Because remember last week I was like, they could be a professional audiobook narrator because they're
Wow.
so good. And it was literally their first podfic. So I was
Good
like,
for
this is
them.
insane. Yeah. But they have done a lot in the past year since they first did that one. And
Mhm.
I'm now listening to the other one I mentioned last week, Sea of Waking Dreams, which is the Onion
Ooh.
Chiver fic.
Yeah.
And I've started the third chapter, which is the last chapter. So it's probably about 5 or 6 hours total.
Mhm.
And it's so good. I mean, I knew I was gonna love it with like Onion Chiver, but
Now
like
that's a podfic?
it's a podfic. There's also a fan fiction if you want to just read it.
Okay.
But I'm listening to it. It's been amazing. So loving that. It's like a Steve is a psychic type,
Mm.
like dealing with the spirits and trying to help like Will Byers and stuff. So some really like dark stuff is kind of like going down, but it's good. But some things that I really want to read soon, I've been like tempted every single day to start All the Things We Can't Confess by
Ooh.
Morning Berries.
Oh my
You've read
God.
it. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So that's the one they're currently working on. And like I'm holding off until there's like a bit released so that I can kind of get into it. But I think there's 3 chapters now at this point. So I think it's enough to kind of get
Oh,
me
yeah.
hooked. So I'm going to start that soon. And then the other one I really want to start soon, which I think you've read this one, is Tuesdays Gone with the Wind.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Buckle up. It is so goddamn good.
I know. And I was talking to This Apple Pie Life,
Mhm.
which is the author, which
Yep.
also they also wrote Take the Money and Run, and they said that that's probably like their favorite thing that they've ever written.
Mhm.
So I was like, I really need to start this one. But
So good.
also we have kind of been taking a little bit of a break with recording our bonus episodes of Take the Money and Run, but I would love to get another one of those done soon too, because
Absolutely. They're a blast.
yeah, they're so much fun and I've been having so much fun with it. So I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks to get some more of those bonus episodes done, which hopefully nobody's getting too impatient and just enjoying them as they come out.
Oh man, yeah.
But I've been a little busy lately with work, but I feel
Yeah.
like I can see like the end in sight with like it's going to be May this week. I'm pretty excited about that. So
As people who work
Yeah.
in the school system, we're like, we got this. Don't you worry.
yeah, the final stretch before the finish line. So
Amen.
yeah, but yeah, so that's pretty much my week for reading, and hopefully we will have more to talk about next week. If you're reading or if you've read Roll to One on the Check, like message me because I really need to talk about it. Like,
Damn,
it's
I really got to get
amazing.
on this then.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. You know what? I promise you I will catch up. So by the time we do next week, we will be diving deep on that one.
yeah. It's good. It's really good. And definitely listen to those podfics eventually because they're
Hell
really
yeah.
good too. Yeah. So, all right, that's fun. This was such a fun week of talking about Holly Jolly and just chatting with you. So we will talk to you soon.
Over and out.
Over and out.